Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking, and I'm from Richmond Green Chambers in London. Today I'm looking at a book which has come from Edward Elgar Publishing Limited, which is a private company publishing specialist books in certainly legal academic work, which is extremely helpful. I'm looking at a particular book which has come to us, which is this book here. It's called Safeguard Measures in World Trade. It's the legal analysis. It's in a third edition, so it's been very popularly received. It's been written by Yong-Shik Lee, more of him in a minute. There is some information on the back there, and you can see the book itself. It runs to about nearly 400 pages. There's a very good actual index at the back. Very substantial bibliography, which we would expect, of course, from anything like this. There are some useful appendices in this book as well. That's Appendix 5 at the back. Then you've got quite a lot of tables. You can see that sort of information there. Then we get into the body copy. There isn't any paragraph numbering, so it's a little bit slightly more difficult to navigate. There's a lot of footnoting, which you can see at the bottom there. As we get to the front of it, you can see what it looks like right at the front. That's the main bit right at the front there. And then you've got the contents page. There is in fact here a note about the author, and then there are prefaces. And the prefaces are always worth reading. That's about the author himself. He's an expert in international trade law, and he's studied at many different institutions, educational institutions. Those are the very short prefaces to the various editions. Always worth reading because you get some idea of where he's actually coming from. You have got a little bit of paragraph numbering which does come in, but there's a lot of subheading which makes it slightly more, you can see the subheading there, it makes it slightly more difficult to actually find some of the things. But however, I think it's an extremely good book which scholars worldwide will find very helpful. Now let's have a little look at what it's actually all about. My wife Elizabeth and I have written this review, and we've given it a title, The Controversial Issue of Restrictions on Imports, updated in this third edition from Elgar. So it's called Safeguard Measures in World Trade. Trade, of course, is a big issue at the moment. We have a whole issue in the United Kingdom about membership of the European Union, which is based on trade, and therefore it's obviously an area which a lot of people are talking about at the moment, and obviously looking at how many imports you can have and the way in which an economy for a particular state is actually behaving and running. This is what we say anyway about this particular book, and it's obviously coming very much from a legal perspective. Now in a third edition from Edward Elgar, this book has become highly regarded as a comprehensive and reliable reference to what has become known as safeguard measures in world trade. The author, Professor Yong-Shik Lee, who started his career in the law, is an articulate and authoritative advocate of free trade, as indicated by his comments on safeguard measures. Quote, "Safeguard measures," he says, "interfere substantially with a normal stream of trade, and their improper application would undermine the objectives of the World Trade Organization." Judging by his impressive CV, it's not surprising that Lee has come to be considered one of the foremost authorities on safeguard measures. He studied economics and law at the University of California at Berkeley and at the University of Cambridge respectively, and initially he acted as legal counsel for Korea's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. Among other achievements, too numerous to mention here, including the authorship of a number of books, he has participated in multilateral and bilateral negotiations with the WTO, the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law, UN CITRAL is how I call it, and the Bilateral Investment Treaty BIT negotiations between South Korea and Japan. He's now director of the Law and Development Institute, and he is also professor and chair of international economic law at the University of Manchester. So he comes with a very substantial academic pedigree. As a regular and frequent contributor of articles to WTO and other publications on the issues raised by safeguards, Lee is well placed to examine and analyse the application of safeguard measures to important WTO dispute settlement cases, as well as other aspects of the subject, including the national rules of safeguards and safeguard provisions within regional trade agreements. And I think it's important to note that since the publication of the first edition of this book, way back in 2002, and then the second edition which appeared in 2004, substantial new developments have emerged, as Lee says, quote, in the legal disciplines of safeguard measures, including new cases. And he points out that a number of regional trade agreements have adopted separate rules on safeguards which basically have led to conflicts with WTO disciplines. Then there's been the implementation of the product-specific safeguard regime applicable only to imports from China, which has generated a dispute at the WTO. And I think again this is something that's very important for us to think about because of the emerging nature of the Chinese economy across the world. So if you are a practitioner, academic, policy maker or negotiator concerned with international trade matters, you do need the updates contained in the new third edition of this book, which includes a new chapter on regional trade agreements and safeguard measures, plus the relevant new statistics. For researchers especially, the book functions as a handy resource for further inquiry, containing as it does 6 appendices, copious footnoting throughout, and an extensive bibliography. With its focus on international economic and trade law, this is definitely a book we think which you should acquire for your professional library if this is the area that you practice in. The publication date is cited as 2014, and I'm very grateful to have this book, which is well worth looking at, especially for anybody involved, certainly legally, and also of much more general interest as to what's going on. You can see the sort of detail again in the book. But thank you very much to Professor Lee and to all the people at Edward Elgar Publishing for producing what is a great contribution to this particular area of discussion. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.